So thank you for joining us, everyone, and to our first HELTASA SIG Special Interest Group webinar. And we're going to be talking about the value of teaching and learning communities. You are welcome to type in questions into the text chat, and please note that this session is being recorded and we'll be putting it onto the HELTASA website. So first of all, I'm going to be handing over to Rita.
Welcome, everybody. It's an exciting platform to meet all of you, especially before conference, and hopefully we're going to see a lot more of you and your colleagues at conference. But we thought we'll start off something different again and move with the webinar, hoping to do more different events in the coming year as well for the SIGs of HELTASA. So I think in terms of the value of teaching and learning communities, there's immense potential and value in having teaching and learning communities because they provide a platform, especially in the current day, to disrupt traditional conversations that's been going on with regards to curriculum, assessment, student success, the discourse of quality as well. And these communities have the potential for us to be able to not only disrupt, but to reimagine and reframe teaching and learning practices to enable higher education success, to enable student success for that matter. The other opportunity in terms of these network communities is that there's a lot of opportunity for shared dialogue, to come together into collaborative and collective action, something that we've been missing a lot. We've all often operated, we come together, we have a conversation, but we don't necessarily take the action forward. And I think therein with communities such as these, there is the opportunity to take collective action through and to meet some of those transformative imperatives or the social redress imperatives. However, in speaking about these imperatives, I think there lies an opportunity when people come together in these networks for real change to occur. Very often, again, we're not talking contextually relevant changes. We don't talk about the actual resources that we have within our context that we come from. And so we have conversations that doesn't transcend into action. So I think HELTASA is placed in a very special position nationally to be able to have 7 SIGs currently, these teaching and learning communities, and the absolute, the benefit of this is that it is in a national space. And here we can have collective energies coming together from all 26 universities from the different regions, and taking our passions forward in order to make the change that we'd like to see in the higher education space. I think the success, however, will greatly depend on leadership from members as well as to how you participate in a very active manner. So I think what we're really looking for is re-energizing membership, re-energizing ourselves as conveners, and re-energizing the SIGs of HELTASA as well. And so this year, what we're aiming to do at the conference is to have a dialogue, it will be a breakfast dialogue actually, and to start re-looking what we currently have. These SIGs have been formed when HELTASA was formed, and we questioned last year through that dialogue that we had with everybody that we perhaps need to change the way they exist in their current form. We perhaps need to have new SIGs. And so the question that this year's dialogue will be, what will those new SIGs be to take these teaching and learning conversations, or to take valuable teaching and learning communities forward into the future, and to enable responsive and responsible collective action from us as academics, students, academic developers on the ground. And I think with that, I'd like to move over to Rosalind, who's going to take you through the purposes, the intentional purposes with our SIGs as well. Thanks, Ros.
Thank you very much, Rita. May I just greet all our colleagues and partners in higher education. It's actually an exciting opportunity to share this information with everybody else. And having said that, Rita has already briefly given us a background on the HELTASA and the special interest group, but I just want to give you briefly the mandate or the purpose of the special interest groups, which is within the national organization of HELTASA. It's mainly for us to share information and develop a wider knowledge base within the field of interest, because when we come together, we share our best practices and learn from one another. That's the main purpose of these special interest groups. And currently what we're having, as Rita has indicated, we're currently having different special interest groups based on the field, specific fields that one is interested in. We do have special interest groups on professional development. We have one on tutoring and mentoring, which relates to our students, as we all know. And then we have one also that is also important, foundation programs, one on first year experience, one on teaching technology enhanced learning, writing centers, and reflexive practitioner research. These latter two, we are going to be, restructuring them. They are in transitioning into what is called the Scholarship of Teaching and Learning, SIG, which is Special Interest Group. So this will be discussed as we go on HELTASA in the next conference. So as you attend the conference, come with your knowledge, with your information, and with your brainstorming so that we can actually together come up with new ideas as to how we can take these special interest groups further. Now, in this webinar, we just want to share some basic information on the current special interest groups as presented by various conveners. The lady who presented first is our convener for special interest groups, and I'm the co-convener. Now I'll be giving over to the next person. And as I indicated before I do that, at the conference, we'll be re-looking at ways in which we can actually make these better responsive to the needs of teaching and learning communities generally in Southern Africa. It's important that as we complete this, as you've been listening, your participation will actually assist us in making sure that we come to a consensus and fruitful discussions that will give rise to effective special interest groups. And having said that, I would like to give over to my colleague, Danny, who will share on the first year experience. Over to you, Danny.
Thank you, Rosalind. I'm just trying to... How do we get on to the next slide that actually talks about the... there we go. Colleagues, good afternoon. I'm Danny Fontaine-Reinen. I'm coming to you from the University of Cape Town, where I am the director of the first year experience for our campus. So the way I see the first year experience SIG is really, FYE in South Africa, by global standards, it's pretty new in terms of a focus, and pretty new in terms of dedicated staff members and resources to actually look at and better understand the experience of incoming first year students. So the purpose of a special interest group around the first year experience, I think, is both to better understand what happens at our respective institutions, but also nationally. We're very fortunate here in South Africa. In May 2015, we saw the launch of our National Resource Center for the first year experience and students in transition. This is the only second such center globally, the first being at the University of South Carolina in the US, and we have very close ties to that mother organization, if you will. So I think here in South Africa, in terms of committed interest to the first year experience, has the dual role to play to both advance the conversation nationally and our understanding nationally of what it is that we mean by the first year experience, what is it we want to accomplish by focusing on the first year experience. And I think given some of our very unique challenges and opportunities in South African higher education, I think we have a lot to offer the conversation and collaborations internationally as well. So certainly as a convener of this particular special interest group, that's where I would see a lot of our work and our drive focusing towards. And again, it would be a special interest group that's really open to anyone who is participating and actively involved in some way with regards to the first year experience at their respective institution. And there are a lot of people in a lot of different kinds of roles and responsibilities to whom I think they might find a home in this particular interest group. So, Arthi, I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to add, but otherwise I think I'll leave it there. And I'm happy to hand over to our next SIG convener, who is Francois Marrer at University of the Free State.
Thank you so much, Danny. Good afternoon, colleagues. Please have the next slide, Nicola. Colleagues, thank you so much. The business that I'm actually taking responsibility for in terms of the extended curriculum programs at higher education institutions in South Africa is really to try and find out what are the excellence in scholarly teaching and learning practices in the extended curriculum, both in mainstream and also in development modules, and especially where an augmented approach is followed, where development work is integrated into mainstream content, and everything to go about in a professional way of structuring our extended curricula and looking thus at best practices. We normally, when we have national meetings or colloquia, we realize that there's such a lot of wonderful work that's being done in the extended curricula to enhance student success, that we must know more of that. Lots of effort is put into the scholarly work and additional academic development opportunities for students. And the only thing that we hear are the successes, the student success stories, of which we were so privileged to have been published in our newsletter. But how do the students get there? How do they manage to achieve such levels, considering at what level they enter the higher education institution? So, and we will also emphasize that again at the HELTASA conference, is to come up with your wonderful initiative, the way that you go about with curricula, and the way that you structure your module, the way that you involve students in teaching and learning, developing their critical thinking ability, and so on and so on. We need those stories, and we need research on that. We have the wonderful privilege of our foundation, SIG, is that we have an annual national colloquium. This year's one was hosted at the University of Pretoria Mamelodi campus. Next year's national colloquium will be situated in the Western Cape and hosted by the University of Stellenbosch. So I think it will be again in August 2020. So we would like you to come and talk to us at the HELTASA conference about the colloquium and your participation and maybe presentation, because that's the community where we meet each other, where we get to know each other, and where we make more friends and involve more people in our interventions. And then a very important aspect of foundational work that we currently are involved in is the new policy for extended curricula as made available by the DHET. We had a national workshop on the 3rd of September where all the higher education institutions were invited to. And there were presentations made by DHET and lots of contributions, and institutions were requested to provide DHET with a formal response on the policy document before the end of October, which I hope everybody did. And then DHET will work with that, and they will maybe adapt or the policy document. It will go out for public comment. So hopefully the new policy document will be finalized in 2020, and it will be one of the roles of the foundation SIG to assist higher education institutions how to implement everything that's been mentioned in the policy document, how to structure your extended curriculum, how the finances will work in future, and so on and so on. So everybody is so welcome to approach the Foundation SIG in that regard, and hopefully there will be quite a few presentations in future at conferences in the colloquium about the new policy document. And I think, and again, I want to mention, if you have any success stories of students in your extended curricula, please make it available to other institutions, make it available to the Foundation SIG so that our colleagues nationally can take note of that in the newsletter, and even when we have our colloquia. So, and then of course, we always want to increase our database. So if you want to be involved in the Foundation SIG, please come and talk to us at the HELTASA so that we can add you to our data list for future purposes. So that's all for the moment. Thank you very much. And then it's my privilege to hand over to Rosalind Govender, who will talk to you about professional development, the professional development SIG. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Francois. I happen to be Rosalind, but not Govender. I'll be presenting briefly on their behalf, and Joanne Foster, who are not here. But the professional development SIG is also one other important special interest group, which is actually a network of higher education staff working collaboratively in constructing spaces and opportunities for professional development with the aim of transforming higher education in South Africa. And I think, having listened to what Francois was saying, it's also critical that even as we deal with foundations SIG, as those professionals, they need to be developed themselves. So it's very critical that members, academics and academic developers, should belong to this special interest group. And you are welcome to join us when we are at HELTASA to register and also find out more about this special interest group. As I indicated, is currently convened by Joanne Foster from Rose University and Rosalind Govender from Durban University of Technology. But we are all, as academic developers, aiming at empowering academics to literally improve their teaching, the quality of teaching, so that the student learning can also improve. And annually, we host workshops on academic development. I think in 2018, there was the symposium was held at Central University of Technology, where we discussed this framework for enhancing academics as university teachers. So it's important to be part of this, to know about your own development so that you can actually contribute even to the other professional academic developers. But it's also important to notice that part of how we professionalize higher education or teaching is through the higher education, postgraduate diplomas in higher education. We know that mostly they're offered for academic developers, they're offered at Rhodes, but most of the universities are already offering this postgraduate diploma in higher education. It's one of the ways or the tools that are used in order to professionalize teaching in higher education. And yes, we are welcome. Let's meet together in next week at HELTASA, and I'm sure it's going to be fun. I know you'll be confused to know which SIG am I going to join, but you are more than welcome even to join more than one. So we'll meet at HELTASA, and I will now give over to Nicola, who will share with us on technology enhanced education.
Thank you, Rosaline. Thanks very much. Okay. So I recently started convening, and I joined Alana Riley in co-convening the SIG. So the focus of the Technology Enhanced Learning SIG, and one of the topics that have even come up, is whether this name is still appropriate, because technology enhanced assumes that technology always enhances learning, which we know is not the case. It's all about using technology appropriately and integrating it into curricula in meaningful ways. So if you're interested and excited about that debate, you should join us. So this, that is really the focus, but we did do a little survey a while ago and we asked folks who wanted to join about what they would like to see. And there are a variety of topics that come out and will continue coming out. There was, folks are interested in contextually appropriate approaches to blended and online teaching. I think there's a big need to go beyond solutionist approaches to technology integration, but also looking at how do we foster sound pedagogic approaches to teaching and learning through technology initiatives. There's also a lot of interest around building capacity for digital teaching amongst lecturers and also fostering digital fluency of staff and students. And then we'd like to also tackle topics such as technology enhanced learning initiatives that go beyond, that seek to advance social justice, are ethical and inclusive, and take the decolonization of knowledge into account. Another topic that's come up that folks are interested in is local approaches to the fourth industrial revolution and whether this is actually realistic in our very highly unequal society. Part of the aims of the SIG is that we hope to foster critical and scholarly perspectives and provide opportunities to generate and share case studies and research related to technology enhanced learning that goes beyond show and tell formats. We'd also like to encourage a theoretical stance that is informed by global and national research. Alana, I'd like to hand over to you to say a few words, especially based on your experience, if that's okay with you.
Okay, thanks, Nicola. Yes, the technology enhanced learning SIG was previously the e-learning SIG, and it had risen and fallen a couple of times. So we're hoping to really re-energize as one of the issues with the different SIGs that has been raised over the years is that the fight for space. And one of the challenges that we've had over the years with participation was around participants having to choose, and ultimately a better established SIG, like the professional development SIG, for instance, would draw a bigger crowd because the choice would rather be to go to something that was more established. But I think with the approach to integrate technology in a way that we are walking the walk, not just talking the talk, really will make a difference. And so, everything that Nicola said is what the SIG stood for right from the beginning. It was just difficult to achieve because of the intermittent membership. Okay. I don't know if is there any more that you want, any more information that you want from me on the SIG?
No, that's cool. I think we're handing over to Sue next. So Sue, thank you very much, Alana, and over to you, Sue. Sue, you just need to unmute your microphone.
Thanks, Nicola. I'm so excited to be part of the first HELTASA SIG webinar. My name is Sue Pather from the University of the Durban Westville, and I coordinate the Tutor Enhancement and the First Year Experience program at my institution. And I am the convener of the Tutoring, Mentoring, and Supplemental Instruction SIG group. The Tutor, Mentoring, and SI SIG focuses on peer support initiatives in higher education with a focus on enhancing student retention and success. So with this in mind, the main aim of our SIG is to promote collegiality, networking, research, and resource sharing and development to support and strengthen peer-led support programs. Who should join our SIG? I think we should acknowledge that peer mentoring initiatives may be located within different domains at institutions. The SIG therefore welcomes academic and professional support staff that are involved in learning, teaching, and student support. We welcome academic developers, lecturers, student support staff in student residence, and on-campus support staff. We hope that you would actually go and visit our SIG website on the HELTASA main website, and we would like to encourage most of you to actually be part of our national research project that we have. The project is titled Pathways to Success, a South African perspective of peer support initiatives in higher education. We would also like you to come and meet us and greet us and hopefully join our SIG when we see you at HELTASA. We're definitely going to see you all at HELTASA. So with that in mind, I'd like to introduce you to the next SIG convener, Mel and Peter. Are you guys on board?
Hi, can you hear me? Good. Hi, everybody. Thanks for this opportunity to share a couple of ideas on a brand new SIG. First of all, my name is Melanie Skeed. I'm at the University of Stellenbosch. I'm the director at the Center for Teaching and Learning. And Peter Tutor from University of Pretoria and I together have kind of put together, we've put together a couple of ideas to start out with a conversation with a broader HELTASA community and the higher education community in South Africa around possibly establishing a scholarship of teaching and learning SIG. So our aim is to take a scholarly stance to transformative higher education practices with shared learning as the epicenter. So what we are really looking at is to establish a community of practice that will be able to share experiences, reflect together, to privilege not only knowledge, but also the knower. In other words, ask questions like, who are we in all of this? We are scholars, yes, but we also exist and work within a particular framework. Within that framework, we are asking a reflective question of everybody, just to start us out. And that is, what is my contribution to enhancing and promoting learning through scholarship, criticality, reflexivity, and going public? Going public is really important because that is where we start sharing our experiences, perceptions, scholarship, research on teaching and learning. That's happening in our own specific domains with a larger community. And that is what really excites us about the possibilities that come with this new SIG. We are inviting all academic staff, everybody in leadership positions, those concerned with enhancing teaching and learning, and colleagues involved in organizing in-house SOTL conferences at institutions across South Africa. I attended and presented at 3 different in-house conferences this year at Stellenbosch, MUT, and Northwest. And so it seems to me that the whole concept and the practice of scholarship of teaching and learning is gaining momentum nationally. So as far as I can see and feel, it is the right time for us to get together and start sharing experiences rather than putting SOTL into silos like we have done with so many of our other focus areas in higher education. So if you have a look at what we are suggesting for a way forward, we would like to invite expressions of interest from the whole of the higher education community, specifically the HELTASA community at the conference next week, and definitely beyond the conference as a form of ongoing idea sharing in this arena. Just a few examples of activities that we have thought of, and here we also invite participation and input from everybody to, first of all, establish a community of practice from, made up of people who are interested in this area. Then to participate in researching, teaching and learning practices and to promote that kind of shared learning. To go public through collaborative research studies on teaching and learning. To promote professional learning of academics and academic developers and advisors. And then to build a very active community of practice in order to enhance scholarly writing and publication. So with that, Peter, I don't know if you want to add a note or two from your side just to introduce yourself to the community. Have we lost Peter? All right, then I will hand over back to Rita for the open discussion.
I thought I'm here, I can see me, so I wanted to say something.
All right,
sure, please go ahead.
At the University of Victoria, I am involved in the postgraduate diploma in higher education. I have a keen interest for leadership practice. I think we should consider moving away from the notion of being agents of change to being agents of transformation.
So, Peter, is that it? I think that's a good. I think that's a good close to all our SIGs. I think it speaks to what we'd like to accomplish in everything. And I think you make a good point about the agents for change. We've been speaking that for a long time. And really, if we do not, as Mel say, disrupt ourselves, then we won't be able to take on those roles, either one of those roles. The thoughts around being agents for change, but also transitioning as well to what Peter is saying in terms of being agents for transformation. And, given the fact that every SIG has spoken about the interest in advancing the successes for teaching as well as for learning, the successes of our academics as well as the students together with academic developers, I think it's an important statement about how do we take our agency forward, not only with ourselves, but how do we engender corporate agency by participating in teaching and learning communities, or by participating perhaps in the conference and coming up with teaching and learning communities or SIGs that is going to be responsive to the current context we find ourselves in. As mentioned previously, these SIGs were developed during a particular context of time or period of time. It spoke to the context during that time. It spoke to the culture, the structures that were available during that time. And the questions we're asking ourselves now is what could be more relevant and responsive to take teaching and learning success, to take the idea of transformation and the decolonizing question forward as well. And with that, I welcome any questions. I think given the fact that we may not have too many of people from the outside joining us, it could be an opportunity for us as a SIG collective to also ask those questions that need, that could start the fact that we start disrupting or dismantling from the point of ourselves, and what have we taken as taken for granted assumptions, and what are the assumptions we need to perhaps question amongst ourselves. Yeah, So I think maybe I'm going to go back to Nicola to take us through some of the technicalities of how we will move ahead with the discussion.
Thank you, Rita. So there are a couple of folks here who are joining from outside. I can see them in the participant list. So
That's great.
I just want to tell you guys, you can sign up for the SIG online. So if you type in bit.ly, let me just go to that one, /join SIGs. And one of the questions there is also, are there any SIGs that you would like to see represented in HELTASA that, as Rita says, represents, you feel, a responsive teaching and learning in our current times? We can also chat about this now. I know I supervise a couple, or have supervised and still supervising someone who's an instructional designer, and they are very sort of absent from this space. And it's like that's something that's come up, whether there should be a national forum for instructional designers or learning designers working in higher education. So that would be my suggestion, and perhaps it lives within one of the SIGs. Is it a SIG on its own? Yeah, so that's just an idea I had. So folks, while you're signing up on that form, we'll go to our open discussion. What do you guys think?
May I just also add something, Nicola?
Yes, sure, Rosaline.
Yeah, in terms of the conference that our colleagues will be attending, just to indicate that we'll also be having an exhibition of all the things at the conference. So if they would like to really interact with any of the things, they are more than welcome to look at it, except for the breakfast that Rita spoke about. We will be having that exhibition. So it's important that colleagues should contact us. And as Peter spoke about agents of transformation, I thought, how can we actually become those? If you go to HELTASA and you interact with the SIGs, it's our responsibility who have actually got information about the SIGs, our institutions, and actually share, create conversations amongst our colleagues about the special interest groups, so that we can actually arouse interest, more interest from our colleagues. I think that will help us a lot. Thank you, Nicola.
Nicola, can I add something from my side, if you don't mind?
Sure, Francois.
What I have observed in terms of Jenny's presentation about the scholarly learning, clear indication that work that's been done in the foundation SIG in terms of extended curricula will have to closely link with the SIG. In terms of the new policy document for extended curricula, it will provide for academic development not only in the first 2 study years of an extended curriculum, but also second, third, and even 4th year up to graduation. And then the scholarly work in those years are also very, very important, and it is exactly what's been in the presentation. So I think that's something that we will have to discuss further and consider how we can take hands in this.
Should we perhaps open it up to anybody that's joined us who's not part of the SIG community right now? And if you have any questions, yes, thanks, Nicola. Or not necessarily questions, comments or thoughts, ideas, opinions. We'd value anything, right?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, it's Nick West here speaking from Wits University.
Hi, Nick. Welcome.
Yes. Hello, how are you?
Fine, thank you. And you? Please go ahead.
the one thing I wanted to say, and I'm very, very glad about the Scholarship of Teaching and Learning SIG, because I do think it's a area of research, area of practice, whatever you want to call it, that is highly undervalued. Dabbling with it a bit through my current studies, it's dawned on me that so many people...
Sorry, Nick, could I add to everybody's benefit that Nick is from the engineering department and he's done his PG dip and realized some of the values.
Yes. And
just setting context.
Yes, descending down the slippery slope of education. And as an academic, you know, we climb into this teaching and learning space with absolutely no understanding of the value, no understanding of the importance of engaging with the Scholarship of Teaching and Learning, not only from a problem-solving point of view, but also from a disseminating information point of view. That going public thing is very important. So many times we actually spend a lot of time sitting down, working in silos, beating our heads against the wall, complaining about our students. And it's only through engaging with not only the literature, but with engaging in physical research and then sharing the findings on platforms that one starts seeing the light and engaging with some of the bigger problems. So yeah, I'm very happy about that addition.
Yeah, I think it's a SIG, Mel and Peter, that's going to play a leading role in, you know, the idea of transformation, but also being able to disrupt some of the current boundaries that seem to confine people when it comes to going public. And I think, you know, some of the ideas that could be engaging there is, you know, publications and the whole tensions and conflicts that surround publications currently. You know, just starting even with what is expected from the South African perspective and why. I mean, there was a question just the other day. Why are most of our academics wanting to publish internationally than locally? So I think, yes, Nick, you raised some valid points there, and we value your comments as well to this.
Thank you.
Can I come in there and just comment?
Sure.
And share. Thank you very much for that, Nick. It's wonderful to meet you in the virtual space. I really appreciate your comments. Just something that I thought of while you were speaking is how often in my own work with academics, I see what magnificent and innovative work that they're doing in their classrooms with their students.
Absolutely.
In the high risk, what I would call high risk disciplines, such as engineering, for example. But there's not enough sharing, and I understand why that is. Partly because we're not creating those spaces within which academics can talk about how they teach, why they teach that way, what their experiences are. And that's what we're trying to do through the SIG as well and through HELTASA, to create those spaces and to help everybody find their voice in all of this in their own way. Not to have to mirror someone else's voice and experience, but to find, you know, your own voices. In terms of going public, that for me is the great benefit of the communities of practice, where those of us who more engaged with the Scholarship of Teaching and Learning and working in the teaching and learning enhancement field, work with academics like yourself, you know, within faculties, and then together we get this done and we learn from each other. We don't know your discipline, you don't know our discourse, and together we really can shift some boundaries. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mel. I think you made, yeah, there's just valuable comments. But one thing I'm getting as I've been listening through everybody, and it was quite interesting that the SOTL came at the end, and you suddenly start to feel how the penny is dropping from all over, or there's a connectivity from all the SIGs. And it was exactly what we started off with when we got together at the, during our meeting, to say, we're shifting, we're transitioning ourselves. And I guess, as Peter is saying, our first form as agents of transformation was to shift ourselves towards a collective. And we can see how the threads, and it seems like SOTL is going to be one of our threads that's going to pull us together and pull us across. The other thing, it's like when Franz was speaking as well, Franz mentioned quite a few things, extended curriculum, but you also spoke about that move towards third and fourth year and the academic development with regards to that. And as you were talking, I was thinking about, some of those good examples that's been happening with the extended curriculum can certainly be shifted and provided to everybody else working with their curricula, all the other students for that matter. We can certainly learn a lot of lessons from there. And so one of the things that was coming to mind was that there is, curricula or curriculum, or whatever we want to name it, could be another missing gap in terms of our SIG community. But again, I'm opening it up the floor to anybody else, and sorry for taking over too much of the space.
I just want to come back to my referring to transforming. I think we should all keep in mind that transforming starts with the self. Referring to Nick's and Mel's idea of making our scholarly work public, it is sad to realize that at some universities, I'm not going to name faculties, but they do not appreciate scholarly work regarding teaching. In our business, it's about numbers. So if you do not have number 10 or 20 on your list in your field of specialization, it doesn't count a single penny.
You're absolutely right, Peter. It's funny, today we were having a discussion, some other colleagues, and we spoke about the value just on what you do and not who you are. And, I think highlighted by many people before, we in this measurement world system, and there's an hierarchical value of who we are right now. And that is something that is also needs to be questioned. And you're right, we need to start with our own taken for granted assumptions and maybe asking some of these deep questions to ourselves. And I guess the different SIGs could be the right spaces to be able to do this, and how we come together as a collective as well, going forward for events in the future.
Yeah, I agree with you, Rita. And apart from starting small at the universities, the communities of practice can actually cascade up into the SIGs. For instance, we do have communities of practice on first year experience even within universities on classroom practice and such. So those can actually feed into the special interest groups. And I think with regard to the scholarship of teaching and learning, it is a common challenge in universities where you find a lecturer saying, but I'm passionate about teaching, I do not like research. And within the scholarship of teaching and learning, it's important to learn, as we share a common practice, that for you to become a scholarly teacher, you do not just need to be a good teacher, but you need to be scholarly and base your teaching on research and other scholars' work, but also then share your research outside as you engage in the scholarship of teaching and learning. And you can only learn that if you start participating in smaller communities of practice until you get to the special interest groups. And I think this platform that we have created from today will actually enable us within higher education to get to that level of sharing knowledge. Thank you so much.
I was about to ask, is there anyone taking part in this discussion not for making scholarly work on teaching and learning public? I did mention the fact that not all faculties are interested in scholarly work on teaching practice, but I would like to mention that at least at my university, the forerunner in terms of scholarship of teaching and learning is our Faculty of Health Sciences.
That's so interesting, Peter. It's the same at Stellenbosch, I believe. Just to add that bit of info.
I think funny enough, most of you would have PG dips at, and Nick is an alumni of ours. But I have been also shifting. That community here at WITS has been shifting some of the scholarship work as well. And within that community, we've now had 19 publications come out of that alumni. So it's moving slowly, especially in a space like WITS, which is research intensive as well. And I think one of the things we realized, Peter, you're speaking about scholarship, the SOTL work not being favored. One of the other hampering factors or structures is actually the NRF and the way the NRF funding systems are designed for people to move into niche areas and rather including the SOTL areas of scholarship. So these are some of the conversations I guess you would be having within your SOTL communities of practice as well.
Okay.
Yeah. Nicola, how are we doing for time?
We have 5 minutes.
Yeah, we're good with time.
Okay.
Is there anybody else would like to enter the conversation? I know people are chatting and perhaps they feel comfortable there. Would you like us to raise some of the comments or feedback from the chats?
Danny had a very interesting point, which I think is really important. So Danny, I think I'd like to hand over to you.
Thanks, Nicola. Working in the first year experience, I spend a lot of my time, I like to say to people, putting the puzzle pieces together. And what I mean by that is the first year experience has to be a horizontal function of a university. It cannot be vertical. You cannot work in a siloed approach. And interestingly, one of the things I spend a lot of my time getting people to think about differently is the way we talk about students. So very often when we talk about students having to go, for example, onto an extended degree program, or they need to go and work with a consultant at the writing center, it's framed either intentionally or unintentionally in the deficit way. In other words, you are lacking in, and you need to go and get assistance with your writing, or you need to slow the pace down because you are not at the required level of skill for writing in the humanities, just as examples. And so what I do try to spend, and I find myself spending a lot of my time talking to people about, is the way you narrate that to students can have a fundamental influence on how they actually experience higher education. So what we're talking about in the SIGs is that we're actually all moving towards a common goal, which I think is reframing that narrative. It has to be around student success. In other words, going on to an extended degree program or consulting with the writing center, or whatever the case may be, is not about addressing deficits. It's really about giving students the spaces and the tools and the skills that they need to truly be successful in higher education. And yes, fundamentally that requires a focus on, a deliberate, intentional focus on, and a valuing actually writing about that, about the scholarship of teaching and learning. What are we doing, whether it's in the classroom or associated spaces, to actually ensure that we are helping students be successful?
Absolutely. You referred to the word deficit. You used the word deficit. I'm of the opinion that we should move away from the deficit approach, having interventions, that is to correcting something, instead of organizing initiatives.
Yeah, completely. And I mean, it's just, I mean, to me, that's an example of transformation, as you were saying, Peter. I mean, it starts with the self. It starts from the ground up. I mean, little, you know, seemingly little things like that can actually have quite a transformative effect on how we do things, but also how students navigate their way through higher education.
I think you're both exactly right. Sorry, Mel, sorry. I was just going to say, and I think that is exactly the points that were made just now are the reasons for why we should relook at how we named as well, and how we can move towards a more positive. I like your terms, Peter, you on fire today, the organizing initiatives. You know, there's, I think I mentioned it at the last SIG meeting, the organizing pedagogy as well, about moving from the self to the us, the collective, and then moving to the now. So I think the time is right, as Mel said. Now, it will be next week, and how we take that forward. Sorry, Mel, you want to say?
I just wanted to agree with the rest of the contributors. I'm just thinking now, what I wanted to say is naming matters. And that says it all to me. How we name ourselves, how we name our students, how we name what it is we do, that matters. And another concept I'd like to just throw into the hat, if we're going to do some troubling and we are going to disrupt and trouble some of our common sense notions and what we've accepted as commonplace ideas, is the whole notion of development and developing. There's a kind of a colonial overtone, undertone there for me, in that we tend to set ourselves up as the knowers and we are developing others because we know better. So for me, it's kind of symbolically and practically a way of saying, well, you know, I'm kind of here to almost inadvertently colonize how you think and how you do and the way you act. And there's a whole bunch of ideas that I'd love to throw into that pot, but I won't right now. So I just want to put that out there as a challenge for us as a community as well, is to do some troubling around the naming of us as developers doing development of other people, whether it's students or colleagues or staff or academics. So that's my bit.
I think you're absolutely right, Mel, and a lot of it is coming from the history of the field, the history of the AD field. We have to get in touch with it. We have to acknowledge it. But, you know, Christy Bowie speaks about the different waves, but I think it's time for a tsunami and a washover. And what is, you know, we've always been saying the AD field has been shaky, it's had shaky foundations, and I guess it is because it was built on a deficit history. And, you know, so what is it, as in Peter is saying, what is it in you saying in the naming matters? How do we move away from all of this to create a new space for new people to also enter the space and feel comfortable about it and feel that they can take this work forward and build teaching and learning successes within our higher education spaces? I think our conversations. I'm actually looking very forward to our breakfast dialogue. If these are the things we're going to work with as anchors at the different breakfast tables, then we're certainly going to disrupt the notions that's coming out, and we're going to come up with some good ideas, I believe. So, is it okay if we close on that note?
Yes, it's okay. It is.
So
Yes,
thank you all very, very much. Thank you, Nicola. Thank you for those of you who've come on board. You didn't know whether you were going to do it yesterday. Thank you, Yane. Thank you, Safia. Thank you, Nick. I'm not too sure all the other participants. We're looking forward to seeing you at HELTASA. Please come chat to us as well. And hopefully you're going to be part of the SIG community in a bigger way going forward in the future. Yeah, I don't know. The floor is left open to everybody to close off.
Just from
I think, I just want to say also thank you for all the participants and all the colleagues that took part in. We're really looking forward to meeting them at HELTASA.
Is Nicola around?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, maybe you started. You want to close off to us?
Yeah, happy to close. I think that was a really productive discussion that none of us really anticipated. So I want to thank you all for being present, and even folks who joined us online. Really do hope. I hope you continue to engage, and also if you aren't able to attend the conference, you can still sign up to join the SIGs. So I've just put that link into the chat again. So it's bit.ly/join SIGs. And yes, thanks everyone for joining again, and have a great day further.
3 cheers for Nicola and the team. Sorry.
Yes. Go on, Rita.
I was just going to say 3 cheers for Nicola and the team. So we've been doing something on our other project. We go this way when we are happy and excited about something. So I'm giving you 3 cheers. Yeah. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody. Have a nice day. See you at HELTASA.
Bye, Francois. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, people.